Introducing Unsettling Social Work. Hello, and welcome to Unsettling Social Work, Decolonization and Anti-Blackness in the Field. My name is Jovan Rivera-Lovato. I use they and them pronouns, and I'll be the driving force behind the works posted here. This first post is a brief introduction to the page and will outline some of what you can expect to read or listen to in the posts that follow. So, without further delay, let's get into it. Beginning with what this page will be about, let's look at the title. Firstly, we have unsettling. In their seminal work, Decolonization is Not a Metaphor, Eve Tuck and K. Wayne Yang challenge the often metaphorical use of decolonization, which conflates it with social justice efforts, such as movement for civil or equal rights under the law. Doing so simultaneously confuses decolonization with other liberation efforts, which they argue are incommensurable, as well as confuses decolonization under settler colonialism with decolonization under other forms of colonialism. For Tuck and Yang, decolonization under settler colonialism, quote, must involve the repatriation of land simultaneous to the recognition of how land and relations to land have always already been differently understood and enacted, that is, all of the land, and not just symbolically. To unsettle, then, is simply to disrupt one's and or another's complacency in settler colonialism. For me, to unsettle is a complex process which is itself only part of the larger process of decolonization. When quickly searched on the web, one may also come across the definition causing anxiety or uneasiness, disturbing. This is also appropriate because as we come to consciousness around our and others' location in a set of settler relations, we should indeed be disturbed. Even the idea that the United States and other settler nation states, such as Canada, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, and others, lack the moral and legal authority to occupy the lands which they do, and must be held to account for the harm they've caused over several centuries of genocide, slavery, and war, is enough to make individuals anxious. But to be actively engaged in the process of, quote, repatriation of land simultaneous to the recognition of how land and relations to land have always already been differently understood and enacted, can and should make us feel uneasy. Uneasy to the point that we are moved with unwavering determination to realize an otherwise world wherein settler occupation has been abolished and further settler violence is prevented. The subtitle to this page is Decolonization and Anti-Blackness in the Field. The former is directly related to unsettling, of course, but the latter is not always implied in discussions of settler colonialism. There is a growing body of literature on the connections between the two, and I'm in the throes of it now. We are compelled to trace the contours of solidarity and be unsettled by our findings. As mentioned before, this is a very brief introduction to these concepts, and I will explore them further in future posts. I hope that you're intrigued enough to explore the work of Tuck Yang and others further, and I encourage you to look into their writing, along with, if not before, or even instead of, my writing. Second in the title, we have social work. According to the National Association of Social Workers, or the NASW, which is the largest membership organization of professional social workers in the world, quote, social work is a profession for those with a strong desire to help improve people's lives. Social workers assist people by helping them cope with issues in their everyday lives, deal with their relationships, and solve personal and family problems. In my experience, which I'll outline briefly in this post as well, social workers are intended to have a skill set which can prepare them to work in a variety of quote-unquote helping environments, and often receive training specific to clinical practice to become counselors, forensic practice to become legal advocates, and or community practice to conduct assessments and develop programs. Just like with any other field, social workers can also go into teaching and research. Social workers have contributed in significant ways to the oppression of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color throughout the existence of social work as a field. I choose the infamous painting American Progress by John Gates in 1872 as the cover art for this page because it reflects the role of social work in the perpetuation of colonialism and genocide. Social workers sought to eliminate natives through the destruction of their kinship ties and assimilation into the multicultural narrative of the U.S. settler nation state. That is the extent to which I'll detail the field for now. As with the unsettling portion of this page's title, I'll return to the scope and history of social work practice as it relates to settler colonialism in later posts. Lastly, I want to provide a few details about my educational and experiential background. I've been engaged in several discussions recently wherein I emphasize the importance of identifying one's framework for understanding and engaging with a particular topic before presuming to speak with any level of authority. Too often, people speak with conviction on topics which they know very little about, and too often their voices are uplifted by other individuals and institutions who themselves are ill informed and did not engage in a process of accountability. It is imperative that we act with honest transparency in voicing what we know and how we know it. And here, know is in scare quotes. As someone who's writing and speaking publicly, it is imperative that I make clear who I am, why I care, what my biases are, what my intentions and goals are for speaking and writing, and so on. Often we position ourselves as godly beings, particularly when we're engaging in social or in research, somehow totally separate from the topics of our scrutiny, able to observe objectively and with precise accuracy. Somehow, we fancy ourselves able to perceive the nuance of social phenomena as if we are not ourselves defined by the phenomena and the researcher slash researched relationship. Rather than absolving ourselves from accountability for our own worldviews, we should strive to be as vulnerable as possible in our work. Only then can we truly take on the responsibility of research. I owe much of my understanding in this regard to scholars of feminist standpoint theory, such as Sandra Harding, Donna Haraway, and many more. For folks who are interested in research and want to learn more about standpoint, I suggest the Feminist Standpoint Theory Reader, Intellectual and Political Controversies, edited by Sandra Harding. And there's a link in the text here, which will take you to the publisher's page where you can purchase the book. I will dive into some of my family background in my next post, but for today I'll share with you my training and how it has led me to create this page and write/speak on the topic at hand. I received a Bachelor's of Women's Studies and a Bachelor's of Ethnic Studies from Colorado State University, and a Master's of Women's and Gender Studies and a Master's of Social Work at DePaul University. I should mention that I also studied social work at the undergraduate level at Colorado State, but withdrew from the program after 3 years as a result of the frequent racist interactions happening there and my inability at the time to address them healthily. Throughout my education, I've been introduced to women of color feminist frameworks and have been increasingly drawn to Native feminist theories. As with many other feminist scholars, I am intrigued most by what helps me make sense of my own life and the lives of those around me. I have developed a political commitment to decolonization as outlined by Tuck and Yang. However, I also believe that decolonization, as with other political endeavors such as abolition, requires that we work together across differences to achieve it. Non-natives need decolonization too. Thus, my commitment to decolonization necessitates a commitment to coalition building. I've done mostly case management and program coordination in my experience as a social worker. I do consider myself a novice in the field and depend heavily on my mentors to guide my practice. Currently, I work as a clinical case manager in a city college on the far south side of Chicago. I am the only non-Black person on my team in a historically Black and impoverished community. I have been reaffirmed in my commitment to building coalitions across differences as a result of working here, and feel more than ever the urgency to address settler colonialism with other non natives. I have also quickly realized many of my own areas of improvement as a clinician, community builder, educator, and non Black person committed to addressing anti Blackness. I have a lot still left to learn. Nonetheless, I am moved to engage my colleagues in dialogue and action. This page is my latest attempt to do so. The posts immediately following this introduction will be excerpts from my master's program thesis entitled Unsettling Graduate Social Work Education at DePaul University. I begin the page with these excerpts for several reasons. Firstly, it's the easiest way to start. The thesis is already written, and I simply have to record and post it. Secondly, it reflects the most recent and comprehensive documentation of my thoughts on the topic. Thirdly, and most selfishly, I am still excited about the work I did, and am intrigued as to what impact it may have in the field beyond the program at DePaul. I did not intend to defame the Department of Social Work at DePaul University. You'll hear in my findings that there are definitely areas of growth, but I believe that most social work departments are experiencing the same or similar challenges with regard to settler colonialism in their curricula. Another reason why I'm sharing the thesis is I believe the challenges outlined here are common enough that others will likely benefit in some ways from hearing the research that was done. During my time at DePaul, the Department of Social Work was highly supportive of my research and welcomed me to meet with faculty to review the findings. Briefly, I want to address my use of citations. This is a system developed in academia to give credit where credit is due. However flawed, I do believe that citations help keep us accountable and am usually careful to cite properly. This post contains in-text citations and references in American Psychological Association, or APA, style. But posts that follow, which are excerpts from my master's thesis, will use Chicago-style citations. I do suggest you spend time reviewing the references/bibliographies bibliographies, as they hold valuable resources for continuing to explore this field of inquiry. You will likely find that I am indeed simply a student when it comes to these topics. My goal is to post on a monthly basis. The exercise of writing, recording, and posting on this page will undoubtedly involve my ego. As you'll hear me write in my thesis, I don't wish to be positioned as a thought leader with regard to decolonization or Native peoples, or anti-Blackness for that matter. Nevertheless, I fear that by sharing my work here, I will be doing just that. So I hope that this page will also open my work up to a sort of informal peer review. Know that I intend this page to be reciprocal in the sense that I welcome your feedback and hope to spark a dialogue within the field of social work with my posts. My work does not exist in a bubble. Just as there are scholars who've provided the theoretical and historical analyses which have empowered me to write, you all can take what's posted here and critique, explore, and expand it far beyond what I'm able to do alone. With that, I welcome you again to Unsettling Social Work, Decolonization, and Anti-Blackness in the Field. Thank you for reading and/or listening.